Should men stay at home with the kids while their wives go off to work? Should wives support their husbands financially? What if you're the wife and you want your husband to go get a job, but he doesn't want to? What should you do? Join us today as Mike Winger answers this question. Glad you're joining us today as we answer one of the questions from our Marriage Questions Conference that we did a while back. We spent 8 hours dealing with almost 80 really difficult marriage questions. We brought in 3 really great Bible teachers who they have a lot of biblical knowledge about the Bible. They also have a lot of really great wisdom. We brought in Dr. Sean McDowell, Mike Winger, and Alan Parr. So this question from our marriage conference was actually answered by Mike Winger, and it's this. Should men stay at home with their kids while their wives go off to work? Should wives support their husbands financially? And for some women, and I know someone who this happened to, she wanted her husband to go get a job and he refused because she made more money than him. And so we asked Mike this, like, what do you do? What should you do if that's your situation? And I was surprised at his answer. So anyway, listen to what Mike Winger has to say, and you may be surprised too. Watch this.
Okay, second one is really interesting because this actually happened to someone that I know. When I got married, I had my own business making money. My husband had a degree, very, very smart. After we got married, he refuses to work. Okay, he's a Christian, he's, reads his Bible, he does all those kind of things. He wants to stay home, take care of the kids, and all the while it's like, no, you need to go and support me. And she's like, I don't think that's what a Christian man's supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I don't really think so either, but.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time on this question because I was kind of wondering, like, can you build a biblical case that the man has to work and the woman should stay home with the kids? And
see, this is Mike Winger for you, okay?
Here's some of the...
You probably spent 300 hours on this.
I'll just breeze through some of the finer points of the topic, right? So husbands did typically become the major financial providers for the home in some ways, throughout Scripture, but I should say throughout time. Like this was consistent in Scriptural times as well as probably pagan countries too. That's just the nature of things. Genesis 3, some people say, this is proof that a man should do the work and the woman should stay home, is that the curse to Adam is related to working the ground, right? The thorns and all this stuff, your labor, your sweat of your brow and all that. And the curse towards Eve is related to childbearing and marriage. I find that soft evidence, but a little bit sketchy because it's as though marriage then is a bigger role for a woman than a man. The husband doesn't have a specific curse related to marriage, so I don't know that that's the purpose of the curse here. It may just be that Adam is a greater representative of mankind, which affects all of the earth, which is, if you've been following my Women in Ministry series, which is my understanding of that passage. 1 Timothy 5:8 does say this. This is another piece of evidence people will bring for that. If anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, which I take to be true. But if you read the passage in context, and I'll spare you the whole Bible study because I don't have time, but this is actually both gender. This passage, it says him, but sometimes he refers to men and women in the Bible, and this is one of those situations. So if you read the passage, it's talking about a widow and all of those who might take care of her before she appeals to the church for aid. And so it's really, it goes both ways, this particular thing. So I don't take that as giving men that role. In Titus 2:5, it says that wives should, quote, work at home. So then people say, well, there you go. You're a homemaker versus having a job outside the home. But I don't think that means not outside the home. I think it means, everybody in this room, husbands, you have a role in the home. Wives, you have a role in the home to participate. You shouldn't abandon that. You should make sure you're taking care of that. Even if you have a job outside the home, you don't just clock out of life whenever you're not at work. You're still active in the home. So again, what I'm just saying is the biblical commands here seem a little thin. It just doesn't seem as though we're given this policy, husband work, wife stay at home, even though that does seem more typical. Add to this that in ancient times, it was often the husband and wife that both worked. This idea of one family income is more of a from my understanding, post-industrial revolution idea. because then you actually had this time where for a season, one income could take care of the family. We've never lived that life. We're one income. I don't know, we live in California. I don't know where you guys all live. In LA County, right? Gas is just, you should walk at this point. So that's challenging. We also see things like Priscilla and Aquila. They both labored making tents together, Scripture says. So are we thinking like Priscilla, you're really blowing it. You should have just worked at home.
Right.
I mean, probably half their tent making all was sitting at their house making tents anyway. So how do we answer these questions? My thought is this. It's complicated on purpose because these one-size-fits-all answers don't work for every household. They just don't work, and so we should have wisdom instead. So I'm going to back up and go towards wisdom, right? There was by the way, Proverbs 31, this woman, she worked at home and had her own business. She bought a field, made a profit, sold it. She's doing real estate and all this kind of stuff. So women can work, but your work ideally shouldn't stop you from participating in your home responsibilities to take care of the house and stuff like that, as far as like the kids and things like that. In the ancient world, they would consider this fine if you just had enough money to hire servants to take care of your home responsibilities. That was their general perspective there. So that's something to shoot for. Just get some servants to take care of all this stuff. Also, husbands are not like off the hook for taking care of kids either. And so Scripture says, Ephesians 6:4, fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but make sure your wives bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. No, it's like fathers, you're bringing them up. You're raising your kids. You're not just an absentee dad who just works and then sits on the couch the rest of the time or goes off and plays pool or something. Proverbs is also, the book of Proverbs is primarily a father's instruction to his son. This is about raising his son in wisdom and godliness. Now, it's not entirely. We have like a chapter that's the sayings of a woman in Proverbs, not just 31, but earlier on. Right? These are the sayings that she told her son, and then they wrote them down. So the question is not, in this situation, whether you should work or not, but here's the question I would ask for wisdom. Is your husband making a mistake in your scenario by insisting on him staying home and you doing all the money making? Is he making a mistake? So is he good at staying home? Is he he's like Mr. Mom. He's a good dad. He stays home well. He takes care of the kids really well. Okay, that's a check mark in the positive column for that. Is he lazy? Staying home is just easy. You know what I mean? He's like, I got like about 2 hours of stuff I got to do each day, and the rest of the time I can just kind of like do whatever I want. I'm just watching Mike Winger videos online. So if he just hangs out, that's like in the negative column. And here's another question. As a husband, he should ask this: is me staying home, is that helpful for my wife? Because it might be hard for her. She's exasperated. She may be overworked. It might be that she's really missing this opportunity to raise the kids, bring her benefit to the children, that kind of thing. So if it's bad for her, I should rethink these things. If there's a sacrifice, here's a general principle that I get from Ephesians 5. If there's a sacrifice in the home to be made, and we don't know if it's the wife or husband who's going to make that sacrifice, it's the husband. That's a good principle, right? It has to do with, wives are told to submit, husbands are told to self-sacrificially love. That is an unbalanced equation, so let's leave it that way. Right? If there's a sacrifice to be made, if someone has to suffer, I pick me every time, or at least I should. So I try to do this when we have debates over how hot the room should be. I try to pick me, if at all possible, to suffer in that case. Now can you insist? Can a wife insist? Husband, you just need to work. I'm not going to sit here and just keep doing all this work. She's doing her own business. This could be long hours. This could be 50, 60 hours a week, because running your own business is chaos like that. If things are particularly bad, yes. Are they that bad? I don't know. If the kids are being neglected and untrained, if the home is unhealthy and for the health and safety of the home, I think she can insist. But the wife has to submit in all things. They're like, well, I think she has to submit, but I think that there are exceptions. We just have to be careful about how we go about applying those. So I would advise her and him to get godly counsel and talk lovingly and openly with each other about these issues, and seek, this is important because this is obviously a conversation that I'll talk to the couple here, that you've had many times. So seek new ways to have the conversation with new levels of understanding. That's sometimes why it's good to bring in somebody else. Awkward and difficult, but it can be helpful. Maybe start by asking your spouse, whoever's most resistant to bringing in some counsel, who would you feel comfortable with getting counsel on this stuff? And that can help. So those are at least my thoughts for whatever they're worth.
They say Mike Winger. Should I give him your phone number?
Yeah, give him my number.
Mike Winger's the only one that we'll talk to. Okay. Your counseling calendar just filled up.
All right, I hope you learned from that. I know I learned a lot from that answer from him. This was such an amazing conference to hear these guys. They put so much prayer, thought, time into answering these questions. If you would like to watch the rest of this particular session with Mike Winger, I will put the link below. Have a good day.